Alright, cool. My name's Tom. I built a Node.js Slack bot that runs on Raspberry Pi that basically plays internet radio. It was just a little like Christmas side project. Thought I'd bring it along. Well, actually not bring it along because I'm far too lazy to disassemble it from home and bring it in. Also Wi-Fi. So just a quick bit about me. I really like Slack, a lot. I'm a software dev at a company called Red Eye in the City. We do engineering drawing management. We're big PHP shop amongst various other things as well. That's where I spend most of my time. So just as a caveat, if you see any of my JavaScript, I do front-end JavaScript more than I do Node, and I just kind of play around in that. And if you want to say hello to me, that's my Twitter. So a quick project background. Again, I really like Slack. I wanted to play TripleJ at home, and every time I've been doing this recently on the weekend, I'll play from AirPlay up to an Apple TV. But if anyone knows what that's like, it just chews your battery on your iPhone because all it's doing is going from the internet to your iPhone to the Apple TV out to the speakers. So that kind of sucks, and every time I need to do that, I need to turn on the TV as well, which is just too much effort. So I thought I'd build something obviously far easier. So I need something easy to control, and again, I still really like Slack, and I bought a Raspberry Pi on a whim, possibly while drunk, and needed a good use for it. So putting two and two together, you get something like this. But really, I was kind of bored. It was the end of the Christmas holidays, and I wanted something to do. So naturally, the progression was a Slack-powered internet radio run on Raspberry Pi in Node.js, which is a whole lot of keywords if anyone's playing along at home. It is up on GitHub. It's not great. It works. It's not great, but it works. So, raise of hands who actually uses Slack. I love it. It is so good. So just for anyone who doesn't use it in the workplace, it's like an organizational messaging app. So not so much like stepping away from your Facebook Messenger sort of thing, but stepping more into like having channels and direct messages and that sort of thing. And if anyone's used IRC and hasn't used Slack, it's basically IRC with a UI on top of it. It's really, really similar, but actually usable. Probably made some enemies there. So it's really popular with a lot of businesses. Some startups use it, some like small groups of sort of like-minded people use it, but I also use it at home because I hook up all sorts of random things to it, case in point. And it has a really good API, so they use WebSockets to do like everything where they can. So they have really good documentation about it, and heaps of people done all the hard work for you for Node, which makes it really good. So it's kind of three things I wanted to go through, which is basically just setting up Node.js really briefly on Raspberry Pi, setting up the actual Slack bot itself so you can start saying hello world and that sort of thing, and then actually trying to play music from it, because that's another complexity. So just as a brief aside that I realized after writing these slides, the Raspberry Pi is not doing anything fancy. There is a PC speakers plugged into the PC port and a Wi-Fi adapter plugged into it. It's not the fancy one, it is the cheapest one I could buy when I was a couple beers in. So Node.js, the Raspberry Pi runs an ARM processor, so it has a slightly different build than Node.js. I fumbled around ages trying to get this set up, but I ended up finding, I think this was the link because I'm trying to do this after I've actually done it. And I think I was able to set it up this way. Just as an aside, because it's not as simple as you might have been if you're working on like your own personal dev box or something like that. So, as I said, Slack has a really good API. It's just WebSockets. There's heaps of documentation for it, I guess, but everyone's already done everything for you. So if you hop into NPM, you search for Slackbot, you'll find like 48 different packages. And some of them aren't sort of just like a wrapper for the API. There's someone's done something in that they're sending out. Some stuff like Hubot, if you've heard of that as well. Connections between IRC and Slack, if you're that way minded. But there is still three sort of packages you could use for this. I had a quick look through all of them. Slackbot-S or Slackbots, I'm still not really sure, seem to be the easiest one to use, the most well documented, that sort of thing, most commonly used. So I chose that. The others were right. You could probably use it too. I don't know. So you need to set up a API key for the bot. It's pretty simple. If you've ever done anything with an API, it feels very familiar. You go into your organization, go new bot, and you get an API key. So please do not commit this to Git like I did, because like they do with AWS and all that sort of stuff, they scan for GitHub repos to try and find these things so that they can block them. So theoretically, I'm giving out my token and anyone can take that and just start posting into my organization. So worst case scenario, get a whole bunch of spam. I didn't really think it was that big of a deal, and I couldn't be bothered because it was like late one night when I was actually building this. And then the next morning I wake up to an email saying we've locked that token now. So use something else. There's lots of different ways you can do it. Environment variables, I like .env. It works for me. You might like it too. It means you can just sort of declare those things based on like each environment, I guess. Yeah. So I'm hoping everyone can see that. This is basically taken from the Slackbot-S docs, slightly modified, but it's really simple in Node if you've ever touched anything there. You create the object, you give it the token that you get from Slack, the name you want to call it. Real quick caveat on this as well. When you actually define the bot in the Slack web page back up here, you give it a name there, and that's the name that appears on the left in Slack. But the name you use down there, like there, is the name that will appear when it sends messages to you. So you can have two different names there and it never checks, which is just odd, but we'll keep going. So there's a whole bunch of messages that get sent via the WebSockets, I guess, then, that you can pick up from that Slackbot-S, Slackbots, whatever, API. And one of them is just the start. So that's basically when it's connected for the first time via WebSockets, you can do some stuff. So this is the example they give in the docs, which is just post to a channel, post to a user, and post to like a private group. It's really simple. The actual format for the messages you send there are the same format as the actual Slack typing. So it's got like that markdown sort of white-esque sort of thing. So you can format URLs and bold and all that sort of stuff, as well as emojis and all those fun things. But you need to do something, so you need to actually reply because we want to actually do something at the end of the day with it. So this is when I start adding in the .env as well to use like your environment variables for them. But there's a event called message, which is basically seemingly describing everything. If you put a console log or trace it or whatever you want to do and see what actually comes through there, there's a lot of things. So Slack sends the heartbeats like the ping pong to see if it's still alive, these sort of things, as well as you can check if the user's typing to you. You can see that like the intent sort of thing. So you still need to check if that's an actual message. That's why it's like ping pong bot on message. Check if it is actually a message. It seems verbose, but it's necessary. And then you need to check the actual text that comes through. If it's a ping, then I'm going to reply with pong. It's fairly simple and it works. But there's one kind of annoying thing with this though, is that the message you get from Slack, if you say console logged that data representative, I guess, from the WebSocket API, it gives you this little structure that's got the user, the team, and the channel as just their like unique IDs. And seemingly there was no sort of like provider within the Slackbot's documentation to actually get the user's name from that. So you kind of need to make your own little thing to try and get that name, because you can't actually message someone back with their unique ID, even though that's more unique than a name. But it's okay, we'll move on with that. So you just need to write something simple. It doesn't take long, happy days. So all you got to do is, at the start, well, I just do it on load, you get all your users and just store quick key values, storing their ID to their name. So it's really simple. So this is an example if anyone's seen Archer before, a quick little reference to replying to that. So this then, when it gets the hello message, wants a quick little function to convert the user unique ID into the actual name so you can reply back by the same API. And you can see it down at the bottom when we actually post message to user. The message it's actually sending also contains the name, so yes, it is working. It's cool, it's cool. So it gets kind of frustrating when you start to do like more complex things, because this is not still like any sort of HTTP routing layer or anything like that in there. So if you try to do the same thing in French, then you're doing another else if sort of statement, and it just gets far too frustrating. So you kind of want to write something eventually at some point here to handle this a little bit better. I wrote a quick little Slack arg router or slug router that does pretty much what it says on the tin, takes the message to the first parameter, so for the radio bot, play, list, status, whatever, and then you can put a call back to it. And it's pretty simple. So the way I use it down the bottom, when the user sends status, then I get past the bot, the user's name, lots of stuff, and I can reply straight to them and give them the status. So that's cool, that's cool. So we're getting something that works, but we still need to play audio. And this was like, oh sweet, I got Slack working, lots of stuff. Like, yeah, how do I play music? Because that's pretty hard still. So like, you can get, thanks to ABC, a whole list of audio streams. They've been doing that for a while, and it's awesome. So you can get like a lot of radio stations, basically all, I guess, their digital radio stations that have the MP3 PLS or something like that files from it. So there's a link there if you want to play at home. You can do that. And then VLC sort of seemed like the place that I would always usually start for audio anyway. And for Linux, which is of course Raspberry Pi running Debian or Raspbian if you want to be really precise, comes bundled with CVLC, which is just an alias for VLC with a couple of flags on there. And that allows us to run interface lists. You can set it up as a daemon then, so after playing around for far too long and playing music at far too loud volumes, this is what I ended up getting to. So playing a URL out to the correct audio device, running in a daemon and getting an audio quality at some point that's recognizable, which is great. Note, if you're going to play this at home, that might not work for your OS. It works for mine, it might not work for yours. I still can't get it working on Mac. So you need to kill that, and it's convenient because that same thing gives you a -- PID file. You can write the process ID to a file, and then you can just kill that PID. It's easy. So then you need to now bubble this up the layer and get it up to working in Node, so you can sort of play in pauses in Node. So again, I don't really run Node.js in production, and I don't know if there's a better way to do this, but it works. So there's a package called shell.js, and it does what you expect. It runs shell commands in JavaScript. So from this, you can then execute. I still kept it as a shell script for playing, as well as the stop, which runs the kill command, and status to see if the PID file is actually there and sort of stuff. So that's cool. Now we got it working in Node. So let's bubble it up one more layer, which brings it out to Slack. So you register a method on play. It plays if it's not playing, and if it is playing, it just says I'm already playing. Simple. If you say stop, it always stops, even if it's not playing. But that's on the side. There's a status message which checks to see if PID file's there, and if it is, it says it's playing, and if it's not, it says it's not playing. It works. It's cool. I ended up taking that a whole lot further and actually adding in the method of being able to add and remove audio streams via Slack, so you could technically add more streams you find, what else, but I would just listen to TripleJ, so I don't know what to use it for. So again, not running Node in production. I assume this is how other people do it as well. There's a package called Forever, which if you want a Node.js little script to run forever, you just put it inside Forever and it runs forever. So that's cool. You give it a unique ID or UID or whatever, and you can say Forever stop Slackbot after that, and it will stop. That's what it's supposed to do. And this is really convenient though, because as far as I can tell, the Slackbot s/Slackbots API, when a WebSocket disconnects, which is like if you've got shitty internet connection, or if Slack goes down, which happens far too often, it just doesn't connect. So luckily there's a event you can catch, which is close, and then you can just kill the operation, and then Forever starts it again, and you're all happy. It works. So it's a quick little demo. I'm sure my roommate will love this. So here's the different radio streams I have. So check the current status.
Load up a little. Can you change the volume?
No. But if I would, there's like some command you can say for ULSA audio to then just increase the system-wide audio. Could be dangerous though. So I don't know, let's play some ABC Jazz. Raspberry Pis aren't fast. They really aren't fast. Especially, I bought the 256 meg one, and if you can, I'd really recommend buying the faster one, and don't do the whole operation while you've been drinking alcohol. So now we're playing ABC Jazz at home, which I'm sure he's really looking forward to. And then we can play news, and we'll play ABC News, and we can stop. Oop, type correctly, and call it a day. So what I wanted to get to this is really easy. It takes like, once you actually get a Raspberry Pi with Node.js onto the Wi-Fi, it takes like an hour or two to really get something together, and then once you've also worked out how VLC works as well. It's pretty easy. There's a lot of stuff you can do in it really quite simply. So like have a go, it's easy. While I've also got the spotlight as well, shameless plug, if anyone rides a bike to work and uses Strava, you should use Piggybike because then it tracks how much money you save riding to work. Shameless plug.
I have two questions.
Yep.
This one is, what are your thoughts on Slack?
I really like it. It's really good.
And my next question, which is equally useful, is what do your housemates say? Oh, never mind, it was piggyback, don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah.
My question is, have you heard of XBMC, which is now called Kodi, I think? Media Center, which has a Raspberry Pi edition. There's also another one called Plex.
These are all valid points.
But you wanted the fun of doing something in Node.js. It's like, yeah.
It was easy. And the funniest thing about all of this is the simplest operation for all this was going out and buying a radio. Because that's all I wanted, was a radio. Yes.
Does Slack have an alarm feature? Could you actually program the Slackbot to start at a certain time using Slack?
I think you could probably actually automatically get like Slack, the actual internal Slack bot to message my radio bot a certain message that would trigger it to play at a certain time. That is a good point.
It'll send it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Can you get a bot to ask the Slack bot for a reminder?
Yes, and you can get a bot to talk to another bot continuously, like just to start a conversation. So there's lots of really good ideas, like trying to use it as a distributed messaging queue. Lots of really good ideas that should never be used, really. Yeah. If you've got any questions, and like, feel free, literally have a go, because it's a whole lot of fun if you use Slack as well. And if you get any questions, just hit me up on Twitter or something like that.
Other question, text to talk. Can you make it speak to you?
No, but if you were running the whole thing on Mac has a built-in say command, so you can actually get it to type directly, say the words via terminal. So we were going to do that at work on just a machine that was sitting there, get it connected as like Sable or something like that, and you type something to it and it just speaks it out loud, just to really scare people. But I thought it was kind of sort of the wrong way to go.
There are open text-to-speech various projects for Linux that you can use. Getting them running on it.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, but how will it go with 256 mega RAM?
GCC.
Yeah.